The bone-chilling truth about Noah's curse on his son. What happens in the tent at midnight? The moon hung high, casting an eerie glow over the ancient forest, where whispers of the past rustled through the trees. A ragged wind howled as if the spirits of those wronged cried for justice. And at the center of it all stood a tent, its fabric torn and frayed, a dark shadow under the night sky. Inside, the air was thick with dread, a palpable tension, as if something otherworldly was about to unfold. It was said that Noah's curse had woven itself deep into the roots of the land. Nobody dared to speak its name, but the tales swirled among the townsfolk like smoke from an unquenched fire. Some claimed each child born under the curse bore a mark, a pale scar tracing the shape of a great serpent, a warning of their fate. Others spoke of the monstrous screams that echoed through the night, a sound so haunting it would grip your soul and twist your heart. Children grew pale, and adults shuddered at the mere thought of that fateful night when the curse stitched its venom into the fabric of their lives. When darkness fell, the townspeople would lock their doors tight, but a few brave souls would gather in hushed circles recounting the chilling lore. A certain look of fear settled on their faces as they mentioned the son, the son, who became the embodiment of everything feared. Each had their own story of what happened in the tent when the clock struck midnight, a quagmire of secrets that twisted tighter than a coiled snake, waiting, just waiting, and then there was the flicker, the briefest glimpse of movement through the torn fabric. A shadow darted, quick as lightning. It was enough to send chills rippling down spines. The scent of rain mixed with something foul was in the air, heavier than regret. Someone gasped, a sharp intake of breath barely escaping their lips. Eyes widened as they leaned closer, captivated yet repulsed, desperate to uncover the truth behind that veil of darkness. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As minutes passed like hours, the forest grew quieter, holding its breath. Then, from within the tent, a low, guttural sound emerged, a laugh mixed with a cry. The darkness felt alive, as if it breathed with a life of its own. High above, the moon flickered, momentarily cloaked in a shroud of clouds, casting an ominous shadow over the tent. The townspeople traded nervous glances, hearts pounding in their chests like a drum calling them toward danger. What secret lay trapped in that tent? What truth would be revealed at the witching hour? One thing was clear, this night was far from over, and the curse loomed, waiting to expose itself. The tent trembled with another laugh, more sinister than before, and the ground beneath the townsfolk shifted as if something was awakening. Their collective breath left them, panic rippling through the group like a wildfire. Some instinctively took a step back, while others pressed forward, drawn in by an invisible force. "Did you hear that?" Someone croaked, eyes wild with terror. It was a woman, her voice barely above a whisper, but it stoked the fire of unease. "Let us get out of here," a man murmured, his resolve crumbling. The group was at a crossroads, a moment where loyalty to courage battled with the self-preservation instinct clawing at their throats. But curiosity was a stubborn entity, and before anyone could act, another shadow danced behind the tent fabric, more defined and threatening than the last. Suddenly, the first crack of thunder split the sky open. The storm was upon them. Bright flashes of lightning illuminated the night, casting stark shadows that morphed into grotesque shapes, faces distorted in fear. But in that moment of chaos, the laughter ceased. A bone-chilling silence fell, almost as if the world paused, waiting. Then a figure emerged, stepping from the darkened confines of the tent. The townspeople gasped collectively, eyes wide, hearts racing. It was a boy, appearing no older than 13, but the look in his eyes held centuries of torment. His skin shone pale under the flickering light, a scar arched across his neck like a serpent curling around its prey. It was the mark, the unmistakable sign of the cursed. "Help me. Please," he cried, though the plea seemed to echo with a haunting duality, almost as if someone or something else spoke through him. His voice was smooth yet shattered, like glass tossed into the wind, fragile yet threatening. The tension swelled, hearts hammering in a primal dance of fight or flight. "What do you want?" someone shouted from the crowd, more defiance than bravery. "I am what he feared," the boy replied, tilting his head slightly, the moonlight glancing off his sharp features. For a moment, he appeared almost human, but the edges of his figure seemed to blur and darken, an insatiable hunger lurking just beneath the surface. "Step back." Another voice snapped, and people shuffled, eyes darting between each other, uncertainty gripping them. But one brave soul stepped forward, a woman with fire in her eyes. "You are not cursed by your father's sins. You are more than that." The boy's eyes sparked with something, first light, then fury. "You don't know the weight of his name. I am bound to this place, to this curse. I must fulfill its destiny." The atmosphere crackled, a palpable energy sparking lashes of fear and uncertainty. They could feel the darkness seeping from the ground, rising up to claim them. Would they risk their lives for the sake of a boy trapped in his father's nightmare? And just as the tension peaked, yet another crack of thunder erupted, louder, closer. The boy recoiled, as if the sound struck him personally. "It's coming," he hissed, eyes bulging in a mix of anger and fear. "You have to decide. Now." And as a low rumbling echoed beneath their feet, enveloping them in dread, they realized the choice before them was about to unleash something unimaginable. What would they choose? Their freedom, or to confront the truth of Noah's curse? The clock ticked closer to midnight as they stood rooted, hearts pounding, caught in the undertow of fate. The shadow deepened as a voice whispered from the forest's edge, "Will you embrace the darkness, or let it consume you?" The air thickened with anticipation. Something was changing. Something was awakening. What awaited them in the unraveling tale? The wind howled, a mournful cry that seeped into the very bones of the townsfolk, shivers racing down their spines. The boy stood before them, caught between worlds, as the rumbling beneath their feet grew louder, a heartbeat of the restless earth. Each pulse resonated with a dreadful urgency, a reminder that time was running thin. "Decide," he screamed, his voice cracking like a whip through the stormy air. Waves of fear washed over the crowd. Some heads shook almost imperceptibly, clinging to the sliver of safety in numbers. Others were transfixed, eyes locked on the boy, hearts tugged by a strange mix of empathy and terror. "What do you know of curses?" the woman with fire in her eyes snapped back, her resolve shining like a beacon. She moved closer, the storm raging behind her. "Do you not want to break free from this burden?" At her words, the boy's expression twisted, revealing raw pain beneath his ethereal facade. "I crave freedom, but freedom is not the answer," he murmured, almost to himself. "You don't understand the price." The ground shuddered again, causing several townspeople to stumble, desperate to grasp whatever stability remained. Their breaths came in frantic gasps, the air thick with dread as they exchanged hurried glances. "Noah's curse is bound to blood. Do you know what that means?" he continued, his gaze turning icy. "For every choice made, blood must spill. Would you trade yours for mine?" Something in the crowd shifted. Whispers spread like wildfire. The tension thickened, weaving through the air like an unseen thread. "What if the price is too high?" A voice trembled, edged with desperation. Doubts brewed, festering in the minds of those who stood frozen. The boy's face transformed, the raw edges of rage, sorrow, and pleading merging into one. The storm isn't just outside his voice dropped to a low whisper, as if fearing a secret might slip into the night. "It's been festering within me, waiting for this moment. You're the ones who fed it all along." Lightning tore through the sky, illuminating the patch of earth before them, revealing dark, pulsating roots snaking beneath the tent. Gasps erupted as townsfolk stumbled back. Distorted faces flickered in the shadows, whispering of ancestral sins unforgotten, of bloodlines entangled in darkness. "No. We will not be your sacrifice. Another shouted, hands clenched in defiance. Yet the uncertainty hung heavy, balled fists trembling more from fear than anger. Suddenly, the ground erupted. The trembling turned violent, splintering the earth like a wound ripped open. From the fissure rose a figure, robed in shadows, gliding toward the boy with an air of promise and doom alike. It was the embodiment of the curse, a dark silhouette rippling with malice. Noah's spirit is here. The woman screamed over the cacophony. A sense of urgency lanced through her. Tell us, what must we do to save you? But the boy merely stared, frozen. He was grappling with the storm of his heritage, the clash of ancestral demons threatening to consume him wholly. You must choose. He cried again, his voice nearly lost among the chaos. Only then can the truth be laid bare. The shadowy figure loomed larger, drawing power from the chaotic cries of the townsfolk. Fear transformed into an ominous energy, wrapping around them. The boy's eyes burned, tearing through the fog of desperation that clouded the villagers' minds. Will you risk everything to unearth the darkness and face it head-on? And as electricity sparked in the air, a flicker of hope darted through the crowd. The townsfolk hesitated, yet that glimmer of determination surged stronger. The clock was nearing the witching hour, and they could either cower in the storm or step into the lit darkness. Would they willingly embrace the shadows to free the boy and themselves, or would they turn their backs, leaving the curse to weave its web tighter around them? As the ground pulsed once more with an ancient heartbeat, the question hung in the air, dripping with dread. What had they unleashed, and was their time to decide slipping away forever? The very fabric of their lives teetered on the brink, waiting to reveal the ultimate truth. The ground cracked wide open, raw earth spilling forth as if it longed to breathe. The shadowy figure, the essence of Noah's curse, coiled itself around the boy, tendrils wrapping tighter with each tremor. The air thickened with despair that curled into the chests of the townsfolk like a serpent, squeezing the breath from their lungs. Silence enveloped them, a heavy blanket, as eyes darted between the boy and the emerging darkness. Like a moth to a flame, the figure whispered, its voice a caress and a curse. The words slithered through the frozen crowd, igniting doubt. Every choice carries a weight. The very blood you fear is the price of your salvation. Are you willing to bear it? The woman's fiery resolve faltered, anguish colored her features. No, it can't be. She stammered, stumbling back. But it was too late for retreat. The shadows prowled closer, feeding on the fear that radiated from the trembling townsfolk. Think. The boy's voice cracked, a desperate plea. You have to believe that together, we can face this. But only if you choose, and choose wisely. The flickering lightning cast jagged reflections on their faces, horror painted in shades of dread. Each person stood at the edge of the abyss, torn between the haunting past and the dim glow of potential liberation. Voices clashing against one another, some yelling for escape, others calling for truth. It was chaos, pure chaos. A scream pierced the air, sharp as glass, drawing attention to a man at the back of the crowd. His face drained of color, he clutched his chest as though the shadows had reached out to claw at his heart. No, not again. His words spiraled into panic. I know this curse. My grandfather. He stopped. The boy shouted, his voice slicing through the fray. Do not let history bind you to fear. Break the cycle. The spirit coiled tighter, emboldened by their turmoil. You all share the guilt, it flows in each beating heart. Would you sacrifice the blood of an innocent so your own sin can wash away? Realization rippled through them. It was more than a curse, it was a reflection of their shared past. Eyes darted, shifting like shadows under the weight of ancestral guilt. How many had been wronged, lost to the whispers of their own making? Faces turned pale, and fists tightened, blood running cold. Enough. The woman with fire in her eyes surged forward. We can't let it consume him or us. What if we offered our own blood? Would it be enough to break the curse? What she proposed hung in the air, thick and heavy, a sacrificial act that sent chills racing down their spines. But was it truly selfless? Would the act do anything more than bind them further to the shadows they feared? The boy stared, a flicker of hope igniting within the depths of his plight. Think carefully. A choice made out of love is more powerful than a choice born from fear. Will you shed your blood to rewrite your story? The crowd wavered, uncertainty bubbling beneath their skin. Would they dare step into the realm of the unknown, face the darkness lurking not just outside, but within? As the earth trembled again, the air crackled with palpable energy, the tension poised on the brink of revelation. They must act, but would they choose to sacrifice the innocent for their own salvation? With a flash of light, the shadow lunged toward the boy, aiming to consume him whole. The townsfolk gasped, bracing for the impact. And then, as if the universe held its breath, everything paused. Time hung suspended, ripe with possibility, like a tightrope walker teetering between two worlds. The truth of Noah's South curse shimmered tantalizingly close. Was this the moment they would either break free or be consumed by the very darkness they created? Ahead lay a path shrouded in mystery. Would they have the strength to step forward when the hour struck midnight? The townsfolk's fear sank deep into their bones, mingling with the ground that quaked beneath them. As the shadow lunged toward the boy, a collective gasp echoed like thunder in the hollow air. Time, thick with dread, stretched and pulled, as if the universe itself dared not let go of the moment. The boy's eyes burned with a fierce light, one that ignited the glimmers of courage hidden within the crowd. You must choose now, he shouted, his voice a beacon amidst the encroaching darkness. Will you offer your blood and break this cycle? Silence gripped them tight. In that breathless moment, hearts raced and breaths hung suspended. Each person's conscience wrestled, battling between the haunting memories of their ancestors' sins and the desperate need for redemption. The figure writhed closer, its shadowy arms growing jagged like broken glass, ready to ensnare. Remember your ancestors, the boy shouted, trying to channel their collective energy. Their pain was not in vain. Their blood runs through you. Will you let their screams echo through eternity? Hope flickered amidst the panic, but shadows whispered insidiously in the corners of minds. A man stepped forward, his voice trembling yet somehow steady. I felt their burden. I've carried it alone for too long. If blood is required, then I will spill mine. His words ignited a spark within others. One by one, they took steps toward the front, faces hardening with resolve. Together, they started in a chorus, together we break the curse. The shadow recoiled abruptly, hissing like a serpent disturbed. Fools! You believe you can escape the chains of your past. It is a lie you tell yourselves. But the woman who had first suggested sacrifice held her ground. You're wrong. We claim our own fate. Our love can shatter the darkness. Each breath they took seemed to strengthen their voices, weaving solidarity against their fears. Just then, a crack split the air. A divide carved itself deeper, like an abyss opening wide at their feet. The boy, sensing the rift, leapt forward as if to bridge the gap. No. Don't lose faith. We have to hold on to each other. The shadows howled, a chorus of despair and rage. Tendrils lashed out, but the townsfolk stood stronger now, fingers linked like lifelines. One by one, they began to cut their palms, crimson droplets falling to the earth. Each drop a promise, a vow that they would no longer be bound by the blood of necessity and guilt. Their power surged as the shadows began to writhe. The tendrils screamed in protest, smoke curling around them like a furious storm. The air thickened, infused with the metallic scent of blood, mingling with the faint notes of resolved hope. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted, illuminating the dark with the glow of countless lives redeeming their past. The shadows twisted and churned, coiling tighter around the boy, desperate to pull him into the void. He staggered, fighting against it, but it was the bonds of the people around him that drove him forward. Then came the sudden stillness. Time held its breath again. In that pause, a question loomed in the air. Would the sacrifice of their blood bind them closer to the curse, or would it finally free them from its ghastly grip? The boy felt the struggle grow within him, their collective pain and strength filtering into one final surge of resistance. Together, he cried. We are more than our past. And in that moment, as the air crackled with electric energy, the ground beneath began to respond, trembling with the weight of ancient truths. Would the act of sacrifice end the nightmare? Or would it provoke something far worse, awakening a darkness even beyond their understanding? As the light grew, the question lingered: what would remain standing when the midnight hour claimed its final breath? The earth roared as the light burst forth, sending waves of illumination cascading across the trembling ground. The townsfolk felt its warmth against their skin, the fierce glow battling the cold darkness that seemed intent on devouring them whole. Yet, shadows writhed chaotically, madness swirling with ominous intent. They fought against the power of collective sacrifice that I in the very center. The boy strained against the tendrils, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. The whispers of his ancestors grew louder, merging with the heartbeat of the ground itself. "Stay strong," he yelled, clutching tightly to the hands of those beside him. Blood dripped, pooling next to their feet, feeding the soil as old as their town's haunted history, but the shadows retaliated, snaking through the air, striking with a vengeance. They latched onto the limbs of the bravest and the weakest alike, leaving screams lingering in the air, reverberating off ancient trees. "No!" someone cried, desperation lacing their voice. "We mustn't falter. The darkness can't win." In that moment, the boy spotted a figure emerging from the swirling mass. It was an apparition that drew gasps from the crowd. Overcome with shock, they couldn't discern if this was another manifestation of the shadow or a lost spirit returned to guide them. It bore familiar features, blending the line between friend and foe. "You are the light," it whispered in a voice that echoed with the memories of generations. "You carry the hope of 1,000 tomorrows." The townsfolk's fear began to knot, fraying beneath the pressure. Doubt splintered their resolve like brittle wood. "What if we fail?" Another voice trembled. "What if our sacrifice only binds us tighter to the curse?" As they wavered, the boy felt the shadows push harder, the temperature dropping as they clawed for dominion. The spectre's eyes were pools of sorrow and hope, reflecting the choices laid bare before them all. "In unity, find your strength," it urged. "Together, you defy fate." Emboldened, the townsfolk raised their voices once more, chanting with fervor. "We choose now. Together, we choose." Their handholds, slick with blood, felt electric as bonds deepened stronger than fear. The boy, ignited by their courage, pulled against the weight of shadows crushing him. Suddenly, an expanse of blinding light erupted, shooting upward in spirals, consuming the shadows and shaking the very roots of the earth. The figure before them shimmered with power, revealing itself as both protector and harbinger of truths hidden deep in their ancestry. The boy's voice soared above the chaos: "Don't let go." Cracking skies erupted in crimson hues, casting macabre reflections on faces twisted between dread and defiance. The clouds roared above, threatening rain, but the town remained steadfast, a sea of courage burning on. Yet, from within the light, a chilling proclamation resonated. "You cannot simply bleed to be free," the echo warned. "You must confront the heart of your curse itself. Midnight brings revelation or destruction." With those haunting words, vibrations coursed through the ground as the fissures widened. Glimpses of the past flickered around them: a young boy, his father, a curse invoked. Questions rushed into consciousness: could ancestral sins truly be expunged through their sacrifice? Would they free the past, or would they awaken something insidious in return? Staring into the vast darkness above, fear trailed back, but hope flared brighter. And suddenly, from the void, something massive stirred. A presence, ancient and insatiable, began to unfurl, crawling toward them with a hunger that left them choking on the air. What was about to be unleashed? Would they face the reckoning of generations echoing back? As the ground shook wildly beneath their feet, the boy felt the crushing weight of choices cascading, ones that could either ignite a new dawn or crush everything underfoot as midnight swallowed them whole. In that moment of truth, the question loomed: were they ready to face the darkness that awaited them in the depths of their history? The blinding light erupted, illuminating the fear etched on the townsfolk's faces like never before. Shadows twisted and contorted, but now they were on the edge of retreat. The boy felt the energy surge, pushing the darkness back, yet an unsettling tension still lingered. The pulsating thrum of the ground synchronized with the frantic heartbeat in his chest. "What is happening?" Someone gasped, eyes wide, scanning the encroaching void. Then the winds changed, whipping furiously around them, carrying the stench of decay. "It's coming," the boy shouted, dread lacing his voice. "We have to hold on." But each passing second felt like a lifetime as fear gripped everyone tightly. Should they really challenge the darkness, or was it wiser to flee? The apparition swirled, its ethereal form merging with the light, as it pressed closer to the boy, its voice urgent. "Your choices, they shape your fate. The moment of truth is near." He glanced around, meeting the eyes of the townsfolk, his friends, neighbors, each of them caught in the storm of possibility. Many quivered, hands trembling as shadows slithered around their ankles, whispering tales of despair from centuries past. "I want to let you take them," the boy yelled, channeling every ounce of fight he had. He squeezed the hands of those beside him firm, reassuring. His shout cut through the din, lifting spirits. "We must remember who we are. We are not just blood. We are flesh and spirit, bound by love and hope." The light surged around him, recharging their resolve, and the haunting echoes of ancestral voices grew softer, backing their trust in this moment. Suddenly, the air grew quiet, suspended in an unholy anticipation. From the deep shadows, the monstrous form began to reveal itself. Feral eyes glinted like sharp knives, its shape vast and undulating, a twisted parody of the very life it sought to extinguish. The energy pulsing from the boy intensified, fueling the flames of hope. "Together," he urged, trembling with both frenzy and determination, "we can't let it win. We can't." As the darkness approached, its growl rose a primal, rib-rattling sound that chilled them to their core. The boy braced himself, feeling every fiber of his being vibrate under the weight of generations rushing back. Were they truly ready to face it? Then, a low murmur rippled through the crowd. "What if this is our destiny?" A voice broke through the hushed fear. "What if we are meant to sacrifice it all?" "No." The boy cried out, a ferocity blossoming in his chest. "We were never meant to be slaves to this curse." His voice cut like a blade, igniting hope yet again. In that moment, the townsfolk began to chant, their voices rising in a crescendo, stronger together. The apparition turned, its face touched by sorrow. "Then confront it and find the truth." With a deafening roar, the shadows assaulted them, slashing at the light, but the boy felt an unfamiliar warmth blooming inside. The ground trembled violently as a fissure opened, a dark chasm threatening to swallow them, but in it lay the knowledge they sought. "Midnight comes, but revelation is the path," the figure warned, fading just as the darkness leached forward, tendrils now clawing, desperate to control them. "Stand firm!" the boy screamed. "Face it now. We will not be taken." But as they stood resolute, the opening widened, revealing a glimpse of a ghastly truth. A figure trapped within. Was it the boy's ancestor? Or something more sinister, whispering secrets of betrayal and vengeance? As the form began to wriggle toward escape, the boy felt a chill creep down his spine. This was not just about the town's freedom, but about his family, too. Did they dare unveil this haunting truth? Just then, the ground cracked once more, and a brilliant flash illuminated the horizon. The boy realized, with a dawning horror, that midnight was not the end but merely a beginning. What would happen next? Would they emerge or be consumed whole by the very shadows they conjured? Each heartbeat joined in the desperate hope that this time, they would not fail. The ground shook once more, and a question uncoiled within the boy: would the answers lurking in the dark save him or doom them all? The darkness pressed in, the air thickening with a malevolence that clawed at their senses. The chasm yawned before them, its depths swirling with shadows and flickering glimpses of memories long buried. The boy's heart raced, pounding like a war drum, each thud echoing the primal fear bubbling in his gut. "Don't look away!" he shouted, trying to rally the townsfolk huddled close. Fearful eyes darted toward the crevice, dread and curiosity battling for control. We need to face it. We must see what it is. Suddenly, the shape in the dark stretched further, twisting like smoke. A face emerged, gaunt and hollow-eyed, twisted with anguish and betrayal, a face that bore an unsettling resemblance to his own. The boy staggered back, a ripple of recognition washing over him. No, it can't be. He felt hands clutching at him, pulling him back into the warmth of the group. Don't! Someone cried, their voice shaky. It's a trap. But the boy couldn't shake the connection. This was flesh of his flesh. An ancestor, a protector. Or a harbinger of doom. The shadows whipped around them, roaring louder, drowning out reason. What do you want? The boy yelled into the void, his voice trembling but resolute. From the depths, the voice emerged, rasping like dried leaves. To show you, to free you. It echoed, more a whisper than a roar, clawing at his mind with its chilling allure. The truth must come to light, or all is lost. No. The shout came from a woman behind him, bursting with indecision and rage. If we let it out, we'll shatter everything. You can't break the curse. The chant of the townsfolk faltered, fear threatening to unravel their united strength. They were at a precipice, facing something so terrifying, they could hardly breathe. This is what it wants. To divide us. The boy screamed, the weight of the situation crashing down on him. The figures in the shadows lunged closer, tendrils grasping for them, weaving through the crowd like grasping hands. Stand firm. He urged again, voice cracking but fierce. They needed to hold together, or the darkness would engulf them. In a moment of clarity, a call came through the chaos from another villager, his eyes wide with frantic hope. What if we become the light? What if we confront both our past and this darkness? His voice rang clear, igniting a spark in the boy. Together, we hold our truth. The boy declared, feeling the charge of energy building again. We are not just shadows of our ancestors. We have the power to change our fate. With that, the townsfolk found their voices, a resounding wave of chants rising against the encroaching terror. The darkness hissed, recoiling slightly, its grip waning under their collective defiance, but then, within the cacophony erupted a deafening roar from the chasm, vibrating through the ground, sending a jolt of terror surging through him. The figure within squirmed further, clawing its way out. The boy could feel the heat of the shadows brushing against his skin, a warning this would take everything. Just as it seemed everything would be swallowed whole by Night's voracious mouth, the apparition's form solidified, stretching toward him. The truth flared brightly, revealing glimmering shards of history, filled with pain, sacrifice, and a burning desire for redemption. Face the shadows. The boy shouted. Face your fears. Do not let your bloodline bind you to suffering. The townsfolk surged in response, their voices entwining in a triumphant roar, fueled by rising hope. But just then, a chilling silence fell over them, as if the very air held its breath. The creature hesitated at the edge of the light, its eyes widening in horror. Time waits for no one, hissed the shadow. And neither will I. As the darkness writhed, the boy felt a pulse, a shared heartbeat, a connection forged through generations. Would they embrace this truth? Find your strength. He cried, but as the final syllable left his lips, the faces around him contorted in terror. The fissure groaned once more, warping reality as something celestial and horrifying began to emerge. Was it salvation or destruction? And as midnight approached, one last question curled through the bitter air: would they learn from their past, or be dragged into the darkness forever? The air hung heavy, a deafening silence that wrapped around the townsfolk like a suffocating shroud. Eyes widened in horror as the chasm trembled, the darkness swirling and churning like a storm ready to unleash its fury. The boy's heart thumped against his ribs, a wild drumbeat of fear and urgency, while the villagers inching closer to the brink pulled back as one, the unity threatening to splinter. Suddenly, a monstrous hand jutted forth from the dark, clawed fingers grasping for the light as if the very essence of hope itself was a tangible object to be seized. Gasps filled the air, sharp intakes of breath that mingled with the palpable tension, each villager battling instinct fight or flight. The boy stood firm, determination fighting against the growing dread clawing at the back of his mind. "Remember who you are," he shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. "These are our ancestors lost, forgotten. They want us to see." A flicker of defiance ignited in the crowd, their anxious whispers morphing into a chorus of resolute cries. Yet, just as the tides of hope swelled, the figure emerged fully, the shrouded visage twisted in anguish, the eyes deep voids of despair. It seemed to loom taller, its presence a dark omen more than just ancestral echoes. "What are you?" the boy dared to ask, curiosity intermingled with fright. The answer came, a cold wind wrapping around him, whispering secrets older than time itself. "Your pain, your blood, it binds us," the shadow hissed, voice echoing the collective sorrows shared by generations. "To shatter the shackles of the past, you must embrace the darkness, for only then can you be free." The boy's breath hitched as the words clung to him, wrapping around him like a vice. "No. We don't need to surrender to you. We are stronger together." He felt the surge of power from the villagers, and it wove a protective barrier between them and the darkness, but as he spoke, the shadows quivered, a ripple of rage and despair erupting from the fissure. Something more sinister began to escape, demonic whispers twisted through the air like vines, ensnaring their will, promising knowledge, power, and even forgiveness for every blemish on their souls. "You fear what you don't understand." The shadow's voice became a cacophony, full of pain and anger. "What if I showed you the truth? Shared with you the mistakes of your forebears?" The boy's resolve faltered. Visions surged into his mind, glimpses of betrayal, loss, and unfathomable sorrow that came pouring from the fissure like a nightmare made real. The townsfolk reacted, shifting uncomfortably, eyes darting between one another. A fracture was forming among them. "Don't listen," a villager cried, dread mingling with desperation. "He lies. It's a distraction, a way to devour our souls." Another voice, weaker yet insistent, argued back, "But what if it isn't? What if unearthing the past is the only way to heal?" Fingers tangled in the boy's hair, pulling him back, grounding him against the tide of turmoil threatening to pull him under. "We can't turn away now. We're on the edge of something monumental," he shouted. "Reject the despair. Embrace the truth of our ancestors." With an agonizing roar, the shadow lunged forward, narrowing the space between them. The combined chants of the townsfolk surged once more. They formed a circle, their voices rising into a crescendo of defiance, pushing back against the encroaching void. But darkness retaliated. Tendrils lashed out, curling around their feet like the very fabric of nightmares, threatening to drag them back into oblivion. The ground trembled with supernatural intensity. "Face your own darkness." The creature shrieked, and the boy felt it, a pressure building within him, awakening fears he thought long buried. Each pulse resonated through him, every heartbeat louder than a gunshot. Could he truly confront such overwhelming despair? Would they turn towards the terrible truths lurking beneath the surface, or would they succumb to the darkness? As the shadows writhed and twisted, the townsfolk's collective fear and hope collided, shaping the very foundation of their existence. The boy took a breath, daring to step forward, and whispered just loud enough for the creature to hear, "Show us, but no, we will not break." With those words, the tension in the air reached a breaking point, and the ground beneath their feet trembled violently, as if the very world was about to split apart. What truths would they face? Would the reality of their past bind them in chains or set them free? The ground beneath them heaved violently, cracking wide open as the shadows clawed for light. The boy felt the pull of despair like a vice around his heart, yet still, he stood strong. He could hear the shouts rising around him, filled with fear, filled with hope. The townsfolk needed his resolve now more than ever. "Look to the light," he shouted, raising his hands above his head, a beacon amidst the chaos. He felt the spark of ancestral courage flicker alive within him, coursing through the hands clasped around his. We are bound by their choices, yes, but we write our own story. Together. We are more than the sum of our past. With that proclamation, an electric energy filled the atmosphere. Villagers tightened their grips on one another, drawing strength from their unity. Those near the front breathed in deep, heartbeats syncing with the pulse of the earth, chanting, "Together. Together." It was a rhythm of defiance, a collective heartbeat against the encroaching darkness. The shadow recoiled, its form distorting as if being pushed back by an unseen force. "You think you can rewrite fate?" It roared, its voice a whiplash of fury. "You belong to me, woven into the very fabric of my curse." "No." The boy yelled, every sound parting the veil of chaos. "You don't own us. Our love will break your hold." The crowd rallied behind him, their voices resolute, chanting louder, resonating through the trees and piercing the last shreds of night that as they spoke, the air shimmered. In the shifting darkness, spectral figures began to emerge, those of ancestors who bore the weight of anguish and sorrow, their faces etched in pain yet glimmering with hope. The boy felt their presence, tangible and real. It was their moment too. These were not just whispers of the past, they were the very threads of humanity, a shared history beckoning to be embraced. Lift the burden. Share the truth. One spirit sighed, a plea that hung heavily in the air. "Do not let it claim you," shouted another, eyes burning bright with unfulfilled potential, spurring the townsfolk forward. "You have the power to alter destiny." As voices intertwined, vibrant and fierce, the shadows quailed, writhing and seething. Tendrils of darkness reached for the boy but were repelled by the unyielding light of unity. He could see it, the fear on the faces around him began to shift, replaced by purpose. Then with a final surge, the townsfolk locked their eyes on the chasm, their voices rising in one climactic chorus. "We face the darkness not as victims, but as warriors. We are not ashamed." In an explosion of light, the ground erupted. The darkness howled, anguished and furious as the chasm began to swallow itself, pulling the shadows back into the depths from whence they came. The boy stood firm, heart racing, as the bitterness of fear melted, replaced with a pulsating warmth, hope spilling forth like the sun breaking the dawn. Then came the silence. A heavy hush enveloped them, and as if the world exhaled, clarity filled the void left by the shadow's retreat. The ancestors faded slowly, their forms mingling with the light, leaving echoes of wisdom and love. The boy fell to his knees, overwhelmed, absorbing what had just transpired. The townsfolk gathered around him, grasping for hands and sharing relieved smiles through tears, realizing that they had broken a cycle. Standing back up, he felt the collective energy wrapping around and within him, forming a shield against the darkness, a promise made together. "We did it," he breathed, voice choked with emotion. For the first time, they truly were free, not only from the curse but from the past that haunted them, each of them transformed. The forest, once cloaked in shadows, brightened as sunlight spilled through the branches above, illuminating their path forward, and as they turned to leave the tent behind, a sense of purpose consumed them. They would carry their ancestors' truths into the future, weaving hope into the fabric of their lives, forever vigilant against the shadows that once loomed. With renewed hearts, they faded into the light, free at last. This was the moment to cherish memories and lessons carried forth to future generations, but the world still needed their voices. As you read this, let their truth resonate with you, and remember, we are stronger together. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.